It has been a bad week for the Palaszczuk government with the release of the Coaldrake report, which points the finger at a dysfunctional public service and exposes the cosy relationship between lobbyists and ministers. Yet the Premier says she's not troubled by the findings. Our Sky News Queensland editor Peter Gleeson has been following this story closely. So there is a lot of pressure on the Premier, which only intensified following her latest press conference.
Yeah, Danica, she's had a shocker, hasn't she? And I think after 7 years in the job, she's starting to realise that it's not all beer and skittles, that's for sure. Look, this is a government that's under tremendous pressure. Ramping statistics, AMBOs not getting to hospitals on time, the worst in the country. A juvenile justice system where we've got drunken and high drivers maiming and killing people and being given slaps on the wrist by left-leaning judges and magistrates. And now, integrity. The big kahuna, if you like, of issues in this state has been laid bare. The obfuscation, the secrecy, the obsession with making sure that the public and the media do not get the full story. It's been laid bare by Professor Coaldrake. Now, yesterday, in an extraordinary press conference, never seen anything like it, she didn't own anything. She basically said, oh, look, everyone has to take responsibility for this sort of thing. Instead of apologising and saying, we will get on with the job of cleaning this out, making sure that we ensure that the public service don't have a dysfunctional culture. But, of course, the bigger issue, which is this cosy relationship between Labor-aligned lobbyists and the Palaszczuk government and ministerial officers and ministers in the public service, that was the big one. And I think there's a golden opportunity that's been missed here. I mean, a full commission of inquiry, which is what the opposition are proposing, is the only way you're going to get to the nub of this problem here in Queensland. And, of course, the cartoon in today's Courier Mail was fairly prescient, and it had her halo, her crown slipping. And, she used the excuse yesterday, Danica, that she hadn't fronted the media in 60 hours because she had to go and see the dentist. Well, I think the Queensland public are now starting to realise that there is a decay within the public service system and it needs to be cleaned up.
And it's interesting, the woman who helped to trigger the Coaldrake report is the Integrity Commissioner, Nicola Stepanov. Now, funnily enough, it's her last day on the job today and she's left a message for her staff. What is it?
Well, a very courageous Nicola Stepanov. She has said today that she's really enjoyed being in the position for the last 5 years. But here's the thing, Danica, just 4 part-time staff remain at the Integrity Commissioner's office in Brisbane. I mean, you've got the Commissioner going, she blew the whistle, along with State Archivist Mike Summerhays, as to the way in which this government operates, the integrity and transparency issues that were at the heart of the Coaldrake inquiry. She leaves today and, leaves with the best of intentions, having done a very, very good job, leaving in many respects with regrets because she was the one who was targeted. A very confidential laptop was seized, and she had a real issue with that. So she's told staff that she leaves with the best of intentions and hopes that the future is bright for them. But how significant that a government that says publicly that integrity is very important to it, transparency is very important to it, and yet it leaves that particular organisation with a skeleton staff of 4. They're not fair income about integrity.
Yeah, and just finally, there was also a damning report into the building watchdog released this week, yet the Minister, Mick de Brenni, was largely not targeted.
Another example of how this government just commissions an inquiry and says, all right, we'll adopt the recommendations, taking no responsibility at all. Teflon Mick de Brenni, they're calling him, Teflon Mick, because he then turned around and said, well, it's all the QBCC's fault, it's all the board's fault that we've got these issues, these problems. I had nothing to do with it, and he's vowed to fix it. Well, the problem is that the buck stops with the Minister. The Minister kept saying that he had no interference at all with what the QBCC does, and yet we've seen in many, many emails and many, many pieces of correspondence that he has day-to-day reckonings with the QBCC. His fingerprints are all over the QBCC, and yet he shirks the responsibility when a damning report comes down. Another example where you've got Queenslanders scratching their heads.
Peter Gleeson, thank you for the update.